Okay, so in this video, we're going to go ahead and have a look at the MDB utility. Now, the MDB utility is what connects the NAYAX to the QIBIXX and the QIBIXX to Remote Pro. So basically, what we're doing here is monitoring the state of Remote Pro, what screen it's on, and then based on what screen we're on, so whether it's a start screen or a confirm printing screen or a share screen, we can then send payment and trigger actions through to the NAYAX terminal to charge different amounts. So just so we know how to navigate our way around the MDB utility. So once we've opened it, it should look like this. Now, if you've got your NAYAX connected to and the QIBIXX connected to your PC, you can go ahead and press the connect button. And you should see that the QIBIXX or the MDB controller will show up in the first line. And if your NAYAX is successfully connected, it will show up in the second line as feature level equals 1 or feature level equals 3. And it'll have a little bit of extra information here about some of the backend settings. If you're not seeing the feature level 1 or feature level 3 line here, then it means your NAYAX is either not connected properly to the QIBIXX or NAYAX have not properly configured your terminal, so you may need to reach out to them about that. Down the bottom here is just a log of what's happening with the NAYAX terminal. So as you transact, this just populate with the data, and this can be useful for diagnosing setup issues. And if you ever need to, you can right click and save the log file and send it to us. If you go ahead and press the settings button, there's a few things that you'd want to turn on here. So the first thing is you'd want to enable auto connect. So that means you don't have to press that connect button over here. It'll just, as soon as everything's plugged in, it'll just connect all by itself. You can enable startup minimize. That just means when you run the MDB utility for the first time, it'll just say hidden down the dock here. You can set a password to access these settings. By default, the QIBIXX tends to show up on COM port 3, which is one of the USB ports, but it's just safe to let this set this to scan between port 1 to port 20. It should automatically detect it. Then it can be configured in 2 different modes, so selection first or authorization first. So typically you're going to be using authorization first. So I think that's the most popular way to use it for a photo booth. And the difference really is just about, I suppose, when the payment is made. So with authorization first, you would make payment first, and then you would select the action that's going to happen after that, or the action gets sent after you've made the payment. Whereas selection first means you choose your options first and then make payment. So the differences are subtle, but for most purposes, I think it's going to be authorization first. So you don't need to worry about selecting that in most cases. Then you might want to go ahead and select disable reader when not in photo booth mode. That just means when Remote Pro is not running in with the photo booth screens active, it's not going to be trying to do things or won't have the terminal active to try and take payment. You then need to select what mode it's in. So Remote Pro, Breeze Booth for iPad or Breeze Kiosk. So today we're looking at Remote Pro, so we will select that. And then you can have, there's buttons here to add an action, and these are the trigger actions. So basically the things we need, the commands that we need to send to the NAYAX in order to accept payment. But for most people, you would just be loading in a set of preset triggers. So if we just press load and click on this settings file here, for example, and we'll show this in more detail in the next video, it's going to load in all the required options. So let's have a quick look at that, so get a bit of an idea of what's going on here. So basically what we're saying is here, we need a bunch of different steps to tell the NAYAX what's going on in Breeze and when to take payment, when to cancel transactions and things like that. So the first thing is we've got an enable reader action. So basically we don't want the credit card reader running necessarily all the time. We only want it to be waiting to accept payment on particular screens. So in this example, we only want it to wait for payment when we're on the welcome.jpg screen. So if we have a look at a folder of assets that you'd be familiar with, so we have all our different screens here, our welcome screen, our ready screen, processing, countdown screens, etc. So this particular event is set up to monitor for the welcome.jpg or the standby screen. So basically what we're saying is when you're on the welcome.jpg screen, we want to enable the reader. So that means the reader is going to come to life and it's going to be waiting to accept payment. Now, next we have to tell it what to do when someone tries to tap the card, and that is a credit step. So basically when someone attempts to tap their card, we want to try and charge them some money. So if we have a quick look in here, We are waiting basically for the welcome.jpg screen. The reader state's going to be credit, and we're going to request payment in the amount of 800 cents. So when you're setting payments, we're always talking in cents of your local currency. So for example, in the US, 800 cents would be $8. If we're in the UK, 800 would be 800 pence, so it would be £8. So if you want to do £8.50, it'd be 850. If you want to do 10 US dollars, it'd be 1,000. The product number relates to the NAYAX product in the back end. Now, this is not probably super relevant if you're just running a simple photo booth setup, but if you're running different options, say 6x4 prints and 5x7 prints, then you might have a different product number for your different options so you can keep track of sales in the back end. But otherwise, you can just have this set as 1 or any other number for that matter. And then basically we're saying, once the payment has been, when someone has tapped their card to take payment, what should we do? And we're going to switch from the standby screen to the ready screen. So we're waking the photo booth up. Then once we are on the ready screen and the payment has been authorized, so we're on the ready screen, ready.jpg, and the payment has been authorized, what do we do now? We want to send a photo booth command, start photo booth. So this means once the payment has been successful, we're going to send the start photo booth command to start the countdown. If the payment fails, when we're on that ready screen, so the payment has failed, on the ready screen, we would have set the reader state to idle, which basically disables the reader. And we want to send a photo booth command, switch from ready to standby. So the reader state will be canceling the transaction, and we're going back from the ready screen to the standby screen, waiting for the next customer or for the customer to try payment again. And the last step we have in this example here is a disable reader step. So I will just go back and I'll just clarify one thing. We're not disabling the reader in this case because we are going back from ready to standby. So we'll keep the reader enabled, but by setting it to idle, we're canceling the transaction. So we're canceling the transaction and then taking the screen from ready back to standby or welcome, ready for the next payment. So that's why we would keep the reader on in this case. But there are times where we do want to actually disable the reader, and that's once the session has started. So once the payment has been successful, we don't want someone to try and make payment again while the session's running. So when we get to 1.jpg, which is the first countdown screen, we want to set the reader to idle. So we're basically ensuring that the state waiting for payment, and we'll disable the reader as well so people physically can't put their card on the machine and it will do anything, and we don't need to send a command because nothing can happen anyway. So basically this step here, when the countdown starts, we're going to completely disable the NAYAX. All right, so that's the basics of this setup. So let's have a quick look at how this one would work. So we'll come over to Remote Pro, we'll press start. I've got my NAYAX test card here. So actually we'll show that again. So you can see here, because we are yet to start the photo booth, if I try and set my card here, you can hear that it's buzzing because we don't have it active at the moment. So it's not in a state where I can accept payment. But as soon as we hit this start button, we'll see the reader come to life. So now it's displaying the symbol to make payment. And on screen, we just have a simple interface here that I've designed. You want to redesign your screens here, but this is just so you can see the logic or the flow of how it all works. So on our welcome screen at the moment, we have a message that says tap to pay. So
please select a product.
We put that on. So now we've switched to the ready screen. Payment is authorizing.
Thank you.
And the payment has been successful. So now we've sent that start photo booth command and it started the countdown and taken the photo. The photo is now printed and we're on the thank you screen at the end. And it's now returned us back to the start, waiting for the next person. So they can just go ahead.
Please select a product.
And start the next transaction. Now, this is a very simple setup, which is fairly common for photo booths, but obviously you may want to add additional steps along the way, which we'll cover off in different videos. So that's the basics of a pretty simple event using MDB. And as I said earlier, once you start transacting, you'll see the log come to life here, and every sort of step is recorded. So if you have any support issues, you can just right click and you can save log to file, and you can send that to us if you need. If you have any questions, just jump into the comments and let us know. We'll have a few more videos going into specific examples.